Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. Malacanang says it is just too early to talk about the presidential elections, but it looks like it does have a preference between two vice presidents should they face off in 2028.
Rodrigo Duterte is skipping his confirmation of charges hearing on Monday, but the ICC says proceedings will go on as planned to determine if the former president should go to trial for crimes against humanity.
And what a week for Philippine politics. Later, a legal luminary and a controversial pundit give us their insights on what could be an even more eventful few weeks ahead for all of us.
Are you open to it, sir, for a Duterte-Padilla tandem for 2028?
Pag-utos titigong, Vice President, puro advocacy lang yan eh. Parang ikaw ang spare tire, di ba? Kayang-kaya yan.
Ex or former VP Lenny versus VP Sara. So ang lumalabas ay aksyon versus bakasyon, nagtatrabaho versus hindi nagtatrabaho, pro-Philippines versus not pro-any country, suhestyon na igagalang, patawad pero hindi napapanahon.
A Marcos-backed opposition candidate may just be the key in foiling Vice President Sara Duterte's presidential bid, according to a political scientist. That observation comes ahead of the meeting of President Marcos and his former opponent, Naga City Mayor Leni Robredo, tomorrow. Speculations are rife that visit could lead to talk on forging a new political alliance. Mobile journalist Arles de los Santos has tonight's big story.
Will a Marcos traditional opposition alliance be a formidable challenge to, or even win, against Vice President Sara Duterte in 2028? Political scientist Antonio Contreras believes so.
When you speak of surveys, Pauline, you have to understand that Sara is getting about 30% of the respondents, 30%, and there's still 70% out there who they don't like Sara Duterte. So this is the point. I think the best strategy to defeat Sara is to unify. We keep on hammering the thought that Sara is the strongest. But you have to understand 30% is not strong. That's the other half of the 70%. So we can only make it strong if the 70% will fracture and fragment. So the point is that 70% should unify.
On Saturday, February 21, President Bongbong Marcos will be visiting a flood control project in Naga City. And of course, as city mayor, former Vice President Leni Robredo will be there. It will only be the second meeting between the former election rivals. The first quick handshake being during the inauguration of the Sorsogon Sports Arena in 2024. The president and former VPs get together tomorrow comes just a few days after Marcos's estranged Vice President Sara Duterte announced that she would run for president in 2028. Despite the optics, the palace maintains that talks of a possible Marcos endorsement of Robredo is premature for now. But Castro threw another jab at Duterte.
So ang lumalabas ay aksyon versus bakasyon, nagtatrabaho versus hindi nagtatrabaho, pro-Philippines versus not pro-any country, suhestyon na igagalang, patawad pero hindi napapanahon.
Castro again downplayed Duterte's announcement of her presidential bid, calling it irrelevant, as the Marcos administration currently remains focused in solving the country's problems.
Ang pagdideklara ng Vice Presidente na siya'y tatakbo bilang Pangulo. Bakit irrelevant? Ang kailangan po ng Pangulo ay ang pagkakaisa upang maiangat ang ekonomiya, masolusyonan ang issue sa baha, maiangat ang employment rate ng ating mga Pilipino, ng ating mga kababayan. Yan po ang dapat na inuuna na solusyonan ng ating gobyerno. At ang pagkakampihan, hindi po ito napapanahon. So that's why it's irrelevant.
Irrelevant as it seems for the palace, talk is ripe on possible running mates of VP Sara. One of them is Senator Robin Padilla, who had earlier floated fellow Senator Amy Marcos's name to pair with Duterte. Robin said he is ready to take on the vice presidency if Sara's father calls for it.
Are you open to it, sir, for a Duterte-Padilla tandem for 2028?
Pag-utos ni Digong. Pag-utos ni Digong. Walang pwedeng mag-utos sa akin kahit sino, si Digong lang. Kasi ayaw ko talaga ng politika. Kasi yun, kaya naman ako nandito, ma'am, dahil sa kanya.
Are you ready for a higher position po?
Ay, pinanganak po tayong ready. Lalo na yan, para sa akin, Vice President, hindi naman masyadong, ano yan, puro advocacy lang yan Parang ikaw ang spare tire, di ba? Kayang-kaya yan.
Padilla, however, said he is also aware of the need to consider experience and existing leadership dynamics for the post. He named other senators from the Duterte bloc who can be possible candidates. Presidential sister Marcos, Minority Leader Alan Peter Cayetano, Bongo, and Bato de la Rosa. Kapatid Arles de los Santos, we are One News.
The international to skip his upcoming confirmation of charges hearing related to his drug war. The hearing is set from February 23 to 27 in The Hague. Earlier this week, Duterte waived his right to attend, saying he does not recognize the court's jurisdiction and will not follow the proceedings in person nor via video. Before the decision, the ICC prosecutor requested the pre-trial Chamber 1 to reject Duterte's request to not appear before the confirmation hearing. In a court document dated February 19, the prosecution argued that Duterte is fit, available, and has no reasonable cause not to appear in person at the hearing. The prosecution also emphasized that the health concerns cited by Duterte have been fully considered and accommodated by the chamber. The pretrial chamber clarified in its decision that it based its ruling not on Duterte's health, but on the waiver of his right to attend hearings. Pending further appeals, the February 23 hearing will go ahead without Duterte. Meanwhile, the pretrial chamber also rejected the request of defense lawyer Nicholas Kaufman to disqualify Filipino lawyers from representing drug war victims in the proceedings. These are ICC-accredited lawyers Joel Butuyan and Gilbert Andres. Kaufman petitioned the disqualification of both lawyers, citing conflict of interest. And with the decision, Butuyan and Andres will be taking part in the confirmation of charges hearing next week.
What could we expect from former President Duterte's confirmation of charges hearing on Monday? Let's ask legal expert and former Integrated Bar of the Philippines President, Domingo Igon Cayosa. Welcome again to the Big Story, Attorney Cayosa.
Good evening, ladies. Magandang gabi po sa ating mga kababayan.
Well, the chamber, of course, confirmed the right of the former president not to appear or to waive his appearance in the hearing. But it seems anticlimactic to many of those, following the ICC proceedings. What can you comment?
Well, not really, because the confirmation of charges hearing is not the trial itself. And under the own rules, the presence of the accused or the respondent is not required. He can waive that. But the court has made it clear that when the trial begins, if the pre-trial chamber finds that there is enough ground to charge him, then during the trial proper, then he has to be there. Because under the rules of the ICC, you cannot have a trial unless the accused is personally present.
What are your expectations of how the prosecution will lay its case in the confirmation of charges hearing?
Well, in accordance with the nature of crimes against humanity, the focus will be the responsibility or the involvement of the accused, whether it is just former President Duterte or they might include the 8 others and many others. The focus is not really to prove that they shot the victims. The focus will be to prove that among themselves, they put together a plan, a policy, or a scheme by which drug suspects were summarily killed without undergoing due process. that's the focus. Unlike an ordinary criminal case for murder, the focus will be who pulled the trigger, who killed whom, and how. In this particular case, it's the scheme that has to be to convict them.
Hence the disclosure of the co-perpetrators prior to the confirmation of charges hearing.
Yes, because the evidence of both sides were already submitted to the pretrial chamber, and to the mind of the pretrial chamber, there are at least 8 others whom they think could be liable as co-perpetrators. So this is slightly different again from the traditional concept of conspiracy or accomplice or accessory.
Could you elaborate further? How different from the conspiracy, for instance?
Well, conspiracy is all of them got together and they conspired or they mutually decided to commit a crime. In this particular case, the participation of a co-perpetrator it is necessary but not sufficient to commit the crime or not sufficient to put in motion the whole operation. So, for example, in the case of former Secretary of Justice, it is not necessary that he directly participated in the planning. What is being condemned now is his inaction, because as a DOJ secretary, he assiduously had investigated and filed cases against the EJK perpetrators. Then the plan might not have prospered because the policeman or the DDS would be afraid of being prosecuted. So inaction here would still be considered as becoming a co-perpetrator. So magkaiba ng konti sa concept natin.
Like a sin of omission.
Yes, it can be your action or inaction that put together and made possible this scheme of killing or extrajudicial killing of drug suspects.
Well, Attorney, given the large quantity of evidence the prosecution supposedly has, do you anticipate that it will be an uphill battle for the defense to mount a good counter-argument?
Well, it's not really the number of witnesses or documents. It's the weight of this. Unfortunately for the defense, what we see to be problematic for them there are many public utterances of President Duterte. There are records of EJK victims, the so-called nanlaban, and records of how many of these were investigated, how many cases were filed, and how many were convicted. They cannot escape that. So there are also records of the police. And the third one is there are some witnesses who used to be part of the DDS. So that's inside information, and that could be very credible.
Okay. Well, Attorney Cayosa, if I may switch the topics, if you guys have nothing else on the ICC, back here at home, of course, almost right after, the confirmation of charges, we'll be going into debates in the lower house about the 4 impeachment cases filed against Vice President Sara Duterte. How do you expect that to go, given that, the SC, of course, gave a ruling in July last year, then they gave another one that's almost contradictory. That's at least according to that discussion in UP Law earlier this week. What's your fearless forecast on how this will go?
Well, I think the impeachment proceedings now will proceed. The House of Representatives and the Senate will be more mindful, even if they don't agree, and even if the very controversial decision of the Supreme Court has been labeled to be faulty or incorrect, it has to be obeyed. So I suppose the congressmen and the senators will adjust a bit their processes so that the Supreme Court cannot again come into the picture and delay the proceedings. So that's a given already. They don't need to respect it, but they have to go by it. I suppose what happened with the impeachment complaint of the president against the president will also, that same procedure should also be followed, so that there are no charges or no claims of double standards or unequal application of the rules or the laws.
But given the new rules, what are the pitfalls? Can we already anticipate VP Sara running to the Supreme Court again, asking for relief from the SC?
Well, given the circumstances, the evidence will be the same. As a matter of fact, this time it's been added damaging evidence coming from this, again, an insider, Madriaga, who claims to be willing to testify, and he was already included in the fourth impeachment complaint. So far as the evidence is concerned, again, they cannot do away with that. It's already there. They are publicly known. We've heard testimonies, admissions, documents. So it will not change. Perhaps just the process. So most probably the House of Representatives will also avoid the express lane and go to the Committee on Justice. Also for political reasons. If you really want to derail the presidential bid of the Vice President, who declared his intention very, very early in the game, a prolonged hearing in the Committee on Justice, which most probably will be televised, will do a lot of damage for her.
Attorney, I wanted to ask you about the affidavits in particular, right? You mentioned the Madriaga affidavit being added to the fourth impeachment complaint. And of course, we're also monitoring the flood control cases. A lot of these charges that have been filed are also based on affidavits. What is the strength really of an affidavit? And how does the process go in terms of the one who wrote it, testifying, and what is really the weight? Because I can just say anything, people would say, have it notarized, and, does that count as the absolute truth?
Well, the advantage or affidavits are held at a higher level of credibility or weight because it is under oath, meaning to say, the person signing the document or the person stating those facts under oath knows that if he's lying, then he can be held accountable and criminally charged for perjury. And nowadays, in the past, the penalty for perjury was very low, but nowadays they've increased it. So because of that, there's a presumption that you would expect somebody testifying under oath or signing an affidavit would tell the truth. But the affidavit is not enough. If the affidavit is used as an evidence against an accused, then it is the constitutional right of the accused to cross-examine the affiant. So it has to be there. So again, if the affiant does not present himself for cross-examination, then the affidavit will be practically useless.
So speculative if, the impeachment goes through and we see a trial, they could ask Madriaga, even though I understand he's in jail, to actually come out and be cross-examined by the defense.
Yeah, that will be the case. And it will be very easy for them to get him out of jail to testify. And then after the testimony, he will be brought back to his cell.
They did that during the hearings for Secretary De Lima, remember?
Yes, of course, one ploy for the defense or one strategy for the defense is will say, we cannot trust this guy because he's a criminal, he's in jail. But he hasn't been convicted. He's also entitled to presumption of innocence. So,
it's also all the recantations that happen, like Ces already mentioned the case of Congresswoman De Lima. I remember a lot of those people who testified against her later on recanted. So I'm just worried, what do we have safeguards in place so this doesn't happen? Because it's a lot of time, a lot of energy and expectations also wasted, as well as state resources.
But the best safeguard really is that if you recant, number one, under jurisprudence, rules of evidence, recantations are supposed to be not taken seriously by the courts. Secondly, if you recount, then you are supposed to be charged for perjury because you cannot have two versions. Because obviously you're lying in the first statement or you're lying in the second statement. There's perjury. Unfortunately, in our country, when people recant, there's no follow-through about perjury. Kukunti yung lakaspan ng perjury. So they just drop it. So that's the reality. The non-enforcement of the penalty for perjury has emboldened many people to, turn around every now and then for whatever reasons.
Attorney, going back to the pitfalls of the process, because there are many conflicting interpretations of the Supreme Court ruling, what can you identify some?
Well, there's so many, like for example, when would the 10-day period start? And Congress, in good faith, asked the Supreme Court, please clarify. Unfortunately, true to its tradition, the Supreme Court has been very slow. It hasn't clarified its decision, its wording. So that doesn't help at all because impeachment processes are supposed to be fast. And
So in other words, these technicalities may be taken advantage of the person who is being held accountable via impeachment and can always run to the Supreme Court na naman and delay everything. That's a possibility.
That's possible. And I think that's one of the very bad effect of this decision. Because normally, impeachment is really a legislative process. It's left to the hands of the politicians, the elected representatives. Why? Because these are high government officials and these are offenses against the sovereign Filipino people. So it's our elected representatives, not the judges or the Supreme Court justices who are not elected regularly by the people. And that's why it's left to them. Secondly, the congressmen and the senators are not subject to impeachment, so they can make the rules. Unfortunately, in this case, the Supreme Court, the justices who are also by themselves impeachable officials, came into the picture. And that's why many legal experts, practically all, say there was judicial overreach. Masyadong pinag-aalaman nila yung hindi naman nila trabaho dapat o wala sa kanilang kapangyarihan. That's, I think, the biggest effect of this case. Anybody who's impeached will now, citing this president's case, much criticized as it may be, if he's still president, then he will keep on running to the Supreme Court every step of the way, and that will delay the impeachment process.
All right, well, just as a final question, Attorney, I mean, you're right. An impeachment is a political exercise as much as it is an accountability measure. But following the announcement of Vice President Sara Duterte that she will be running for the presidency in 2028, how do you think that will affect the impeachment proceedings at the lower house?
Well, the congressmen and the senators, these are astute politicians. So, they will weigh things. But, in politics, a few days, a few months, it's a very long time. So when it depends on how the political wind will blow. So if we just talk about politics, that's how they will do it. They will gauge the pulse of the people and they will vote accordingly. At the same time also, they will try to protect their own political interests. But still, that's why it is very important that there's transparency in the process, everybody sees it, so that public opinion can be galvanized and that can be transmitted to the politicians who would need the votes. That's very important, and media like you would play a very important role because though they are politicians, they have to contend with the evidence, the law, and the truth, and the principles of public accountability.
We thank you for your time. Former Integrated Bar of the Philippines President, Attorney Domingo Igon Cayosa.
And in other news, Attorney Melvin Matibag has been officially sworn in as the new director of the National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI. Executive Secretary Ralph Recto administered the oath earlier today in Malacanang. Matibang replaces Attorney Lito Magno, who was appointed acting NBI director just last December and held the post for only 79 days. Matibag was a former ally of the previous administration and was even Secretary General of PDP Laban former President Rodrigo Duterte's political party. Still from the palace, it is still yet to decide on the fate of the Independent Commission for Infrastructure or ICI. The panel recently submitted a report to Malacanang and continues to investigate anomalous infrastructure projects despite the resignation of 2 commissioners.
Kasi nagiging gap sa pagtatrabaho. Patuloy pa rin po rin tatrabaho ang ICI. Nakapagbigay nga po sila ng report at nagkatatrabaho din po, ayon din po sa ombudsman, sila din po ay nagpapatuloy sa kanilang pag-iimbestiga. Tandaan po natin, marami na po kasi na isumite ang ICI sa ombudsman at sa DOJ. So yun po nga ang dapat nating hintayin kung ano po ang magiging resulta kung may maisa sa papang mga kaso.
We're just gonna take a quick break, but coming up, it's not only Filipinos that will be keenly watching results of the 2028 presidential elections. China is allegedly deeply tuned in. That story and more are still ahead. Keep it here on One News.
You're watching The Big Story here on One News. Will Vice President Sara Duterte's bank records be scrutinized as part of the impeachment proceedings against her? House Deputy Speaker Paulo Ortega says absolutely. That question came up because of the 4th ouster complaint.
Well, right now, all 4 impeachment complaints against the Vice President are now with the Office of Speaker Boji D. They are awaiting inclusion in the plenary's order of business, which according to House Justice Committee Chair Jervil Luistro, should be made by March 4th. Prior to that date, Luistro insists the committee cannot do anything about the impeachment yet. She also denied that the House is already collecting signatures to fast-track the procedure and immediately transmit the impeachment to the Senate.
Pa kaming preparation na ginagawa. First and foremost, wala pa kaming jurisdiction over those complaints until ma-refer ito sa Justice Committee. I am merely relying on the news report with respect to the grounds which are being discussed, no? And it seems na tama kayo, almost the same grounds at mukhang pare-pares meron silang madriyaga doon sa impeachment complaints. So we will be starting to discuss this once the same are referred to the Justice Committee. I have no information at all about those signatures necessary to constitute 1/3. Wala po tayong information about that.
Meantime, Luistro refused to say whether Duterte's announcement of her 2028 presidential bid had something to do with the delay in movement of the ouster moves. Luistro says this is not material to the lower chamber's duty to act on any impeachment complaint submitted to them.
On a constitutional perspective, hindi dapat siya makaapekto kasi constitutional duty ito ng members ng House of Representatives to receive impeachment complaints, to hear it before the Justice Committee, and to vote in the plenary. This is a constitutional duty which we owe neither to the President nor to the Vice President, but to the Filipino people.
Now let's discuss the week that was and the week that will be with our resident political pundit, Ronald Llamas. Good evening to you, Ronald.
Good evening, Seth, Shawn, Pauline. Gandang gabi.
Nandito ka na sa mainit na weather. Wala ka na dun sa, hindi ka na linalamig kung saan ka man. Can you hear us? Parang naglalag ang iyong connection.
Sabi ko palang, Ses, parang nandito na siya. Hindi na lightning speed yung internet.
Japan.
You're still in Japan?
All right.
Let's try that again.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, take 2. Ronald Llamas, are you there?
Okay, of course, si Ronald is our resident political pundit. 2 weeks na siyang nawawala. And, nagbabakasyon. actually. Yes, correct.
Nagbabakasyon.
He deserves it.
Actually, ang una kong gustong tanungin sa kanya, we are once again with two Dutertes in the headlines. Diba?
Yeah, and I've been reading a lot na parang a lot of analysts are saying they probably timed it. Yung sulat ni Rodrigo Duterte sa ICC saying na I don't recognize yung the usual lines. And then her announcement.
Her announcement, and all these happened in just 2 weeks, right? So a very, very eventful week. But we wanted to also discuss, of course, the implications of Sarah's early declaration for the presidency and how this will also affect the impeachment and even the ICC proceedings. Will this announcement consolidate and her base? Will this affect realignments politically? Lots of things to discuss with Ronald. But so we're going to double check again. Ronald?
Yeah, and he did, I recall Ronald saying that this is the year that is very crucial for the 2028 elections. This year, 2026.
I think
Are you
he's
back? Are you back online?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Oh.
So, unang-una yung timing ni VP Sara announcing her run for the presidency. A lot are saying, it's really to impact the vote on the impeachment complaint. Pag nagtatanong, nawawala ka na, Ronald eh.
A day before nag-announce si Vice President. Wala pa rin ba? Wala pa rin? Ha?
Well, we
Wala pa
can
rin?
hear you. We can hear you.
Wala pa rin?
Meron. Sige, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, a day bago nag-announce si Vice President Sara, hello?
Yes. Go ahead.
A day bago nag-announce si Vice President Sara ay nag-submit ng letter si ex-President Digong sa ICC na hindi siya haharap sa sariling trial. Kaya itong pag-announce ni Vice President Sara na kanyang candidacy 2.5 years before the election, I think bahagi ng isang strategy. No? Strategy to frame na they are being persecuted, they are being harassed, at ito kanyang pagtakbo ay bahagi nito. So ito yung framing. Pineframe niya yung impeachment dun sa kanyang pagtakbo as president. Kalawa ay nagsasend siya ng message dun sa mga politiko na boboto for her impeachment na mag-ingat kayo. Dahil running for at number 1 ako sa surveys. Ibig sabihin, mag-ingat kayo. Kung pipirma kayo sa aking impeachment, delikado kayo sa 2028 when I win the presidency.
Okay.
Pero ikatlo ay ang habol nila, makonsolidate yung kanilang base. Parang action at sa kanilang base na we're now going to war. No? Kailangan lahat kayo ay maghanda na, papunta na tayo sa gera. At panghuli, ika-4, to bump her number. Mataas na nga siya, gusto pa niya ay mabump yung kanyang number. Ayaw niya mangyari sa kanya, yung nangyari kay Vice President Binay. Na sa ratings, eventually ay gumuho. Mas ang gusto niya is the ERA framework na sumobra na hindi na kayang habulin kahit sa dulo ng eleksyon.
Maaga bang naghayag si ERAP noon?
Yes, from the very start kasi alam na tatakbo si ERAP eh. Si presidente or kandidato na from the start to finish mataas ang ratings.
Okay. So sa tingin mo, will she be a Binay or an ERAP?
Well, for now, hindi siya siguradong maging ERAP. Dahil like a Binay, maraming kaso ang kinaharap niya. So, sa impeachment. So, huwag niyong kalimutan. 2 taon, nagkaroon ng hearing sa Senate against kay Vice President Binay. No? Kaya gumuho siya dahil tuloy-tuloy yung bakit niya. No? Yun yung...
Pero Ronald, sabi nga nung mga ibang analysts, no, nung mga ibang pundits din, na medyo kakaiba kasi itong kaso ni VP Sara Duterte. No? Unlike kay Binay, maaga nga siya nag-announce. Pero, she's doing it to head off the impeachment. Of course, anything possible na lumabas din sa ICC. Kasi kung ma-confirm yung charges kay Tatay Digong, magsa-start na rin daw yung trial sometime later this year, which means pasok siya before 2028. So it could go two ways for her.
Yeah, paano kung yung mga ebidensyang lalabas sa trial ni Digong, mga ebidensyang lalabas sa kanyang plunder case sa ombudsman, kung yung mga ebidensyang lalabas sa kanyang impeachment, kung matutuloy sa Senado, could be very compelling para siya ay ma-damage. Katulad ng kay Binay. Kaya lang ako, walang kaso nakasampa kay Herap nung siya ay nanalo. Diba? Ang sa kanya ay wala siyang alam at siya ay artista. Ang kalaban niya, si Duterte, mukhang malayo. O tama, medyo iba naman. Pero ang ay posible siyang maging Binay. Posible siyang maging Binay. Dahil mas mataas si Binay kaysa kay Sara. More than 40% si second half ng kanyang term. Katulad ngayon, second half ng ni Sara. No?
Now, ang response is, or what people are hoping to be an alliance between the administration and the pinks and the yellows. Is that a possibility?
Well, bukas, makikita si Bongbong at saka si Lenny sa Naga. No? Ostensibly, mag-ribbon cutting ng isang proyekto. Si Bongbong, si Vince Nixon, with Lenny Robredo. At nila, wala namang ibig sabihin yun. Pero siyempre, sa atin, mahalaga yung protection. Kita sa maraming iaanak ng storya yun. Tingin ko, hindi naman lost yun eh. Both kay Lenny at saka kay Bongbong. Tingin ko, gusto rin nila ipakita kay Sara, hindi ka untouchable. No? Hindi ka untouchable. Ibig sabihin, kung lahat ng mga anti-Duterte forces ay mag-unite, officially or non-officially, medyo delikado ka rin. No? Dahil ang packaging kasi ni Vice President Sara, nung nang-announce siya, hindi lang ako unbeatable ako. Ngayon, yung lalabas bukas, pwedeng mag-present ng optics na hindi, beatable ka. No? Beatable ka dahil yung mga non-Duterte forces may field just one candidate. Hindi na kailangan ng koalisyon. Hindi na kailangan ng joint campaign. Pero pwede na isa lang ang tatakbo. Hindi mo pang administrasyon, magpapatakbo yung PIN, or magpapatakbo yung administrasyon, hindi magpapatakbo yung PIN. Basta ang mahalaga, posible na isa lang ang kandidato labang kay Sara. Then that are vulnerable.
Pero Ronald, in the past, every time tinatanong si former VP Lenny about 2028, she says she has no plans to run. What would make her reconsider? Should she even reconsider that sentiment? And what should she do differently from 2022?
Una ay 2.5 years pa bago mag-eleksyon. So yung iba siguro iniisip na baka masyado pang maaga. Pwede gano'n yung iniisip. Kalawa, kakapanalo pa lang niya at mayor. Parang hindi magandang tignan, kakapanalo pa lang niya ng mayor, tapos tatakbo na kagad siya for president. So there has to be a groundswell for her run. No? Siguro yung nanginihintay nila. Pero ikatlo, iba yung panahon natin ngayon eh. 2028 will be decided in 2026. Kaya sooner than sooner, they have to decide sino ang lalabang kay Sara. They have to decide sa 2027. They have to decide 2026. Tingin ko na kay Sara, yan ngayon yung bagong element, bagong variable na pinoconsider ng lahat na nagkaplano sa 2028. Hindi pwedeng maghintay. Kailangan na rin nila mag-announce this year.
Pero Ronald, sino nga, anong klaseng kandidato, meron bang kandidato na pwedeng tumapat kay VP Sara Duterte? Kahit pa hindi siya nag-early announcement, I mean, that's already the question people are asking. Dapat kasi usually, di ba, umaangat na yung kandidatong yon. Now we're hearing the names. Of course, VP Lenny is one, Senator Risa is the other, mga ganun eh. So,
Necessarily, dahil lahat ng nanalo presidente, hindi umangat ng maaga. Palibang kay FDR, no? Si Dugong, lahat yan hindi na umangat maaga. Actually, nakilala lang sila less than a year before the elections. Pinoy, dahil Tescory, si Digong, no? Si FBI, etc. So, hindi totoo na kinakailangan mong umangat ng maaga. Karamihan ng umangat ng umaga, maliban kay ERA, natalo.
So naganap tayong dark horse, no? Parang si President Duterte, natapos na yung
Okay.
COC filing, we thought it was done.
Now, I'd like to ask you, Ronald, ano ba ang prosesong katanggap-tanggap dito sa traditional opposition para makapili?
Kailangan nila mag-usap. Dahil hindi nila yung
Okay, naku, parang nanggagaling na sa ilalim ng lupa ang boses mo. We'll have to end it there. We thank you. It's too bad. We have to end it there. Political pundit Ronald Llamas, thank you. Now on to another story. Commodore J. Tariela is still calling out China's supposed disinformation tactics. At a recent forum, the Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson declared Beijing will be closely watching the Philippine election in 2028. Mobile journalist Arles de los Santos has this report.
Just a disclaimer, that caricature is not something that I made. I have to cover the face, otherwise there will be another diplomatic protest.
Amidst the recent exchanges of social media posts with the Chinese embassy, PCG spokesperson J. Tariela remains unfazed as he highlights the role of the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine Coast Guard in asserting our rights in the West Philippine Sea. In a forum organized by Strat-Based Institute, Tariela pointed out China's alleged disinformation tactics to position him as the aggressor and China as the victim. This, he believes, is part of Beijing's broader foreign information manipulation and interference, or FIMI. That is after he used a caricature containing the face of Chinese President Xi Jinping, with the latter calling it a violation of China's political dignity and blatant political provocation.
This tactic aligns with FIMI strategies that target critics through harassment and character assassination, such as online bot networks amplifying attacks on individuals like Philippine officials who expose maritime aggression.
Tariela also listed ways on how China will combat the Marcos administration's transparency as already institutionalized and inculcated into the public's awareness when it comes to the West Philippine Sea. He claims Beijing will be closely watching, wary of who will become the next president of the Philippines amid the maritime row. Tariela says the Chinese embassy has been pouring extra effort to silence him so as to convince the national government to limit the discourse on the WPS via the Department of Foreign Affairs. China would not want the army and the Coast Guard involved.
Obviously, anybody whom they are really betting to be the next president is somebody who's not going to stand up for our rights, because it will be on their disadvantage if the next president will continue what President Marcos has been doing so far, exposing Chinese aggression.
Meanwhile, Captain Marisa Martinez of the Philippine Navy highlighted the operating environment of FIMI in the Philippines, where the social media platforms are the primary battlegrounds, calling a whole-of-society response, including coordination with private entities and social media platforms to address the challenges, especially as the 2028 presidential election looms close.
We have to protect the integrity of our information environment, and the only way to do that is to come up with TTPs also. So one is education, one is regulation, regulating also the platforms that use that gives out information. We should also be able to make them accountable also.
Also present in the two-day Strat-based conference are key stakeholders from the government, the private sector, academia, civil society, and the international community. The aim, to address the escalating cyber threats and develop strategies to protect critical infrastructure and democratic processes. Countries like Canada say they can learn from the Philippines as they advance cybersecurity and democratic resilience in the Indo-Pacific. Also present were representatives from Malaysia, Japan, and Palau. Despite the intimidation, Tariela said there are no orders from the palace to tone down or minimize his media presence, adding he wants to forward transparency and ensure Filipinos do not forget the public officials who surrendered our sovereignty rights in the West Philippine Sea. Kapatid Arles de los Santos, we are One News.
We're pausing for another breather, but right after that, it's all systems go for the People Power's 40th anniversary, which celebrations culminate on February 25. Keep it here on One News.
Welcome back to the Big Story. Preparations are underway for the commemoration of the 40th anniversary of the People Power Revolution, which is a special working holiday. MMDA and Quezon City LGU officials conducted a walkthrough this morning along White Plains Avenue, where the 3rd trillion peso march will also be held. Organizers say the anti-corruption protest 3.0 will be the same as the previous two, but this time there will be no march from EDSA Shrine to the People Power Monument to minimize disruptions. Organizer Kiko Aquino D says no politician will be allowed during the program, which will start at 3 p.m.
Yung panawagan natin na ikulong ang lahat ng mga kurakot, and while we're seeing some progress from the Marcos administration, may ilang mga big fish na nakukulong. Yung mga ibang big fish, lalo na yung mga malapit kay President Marcos katulad ni Speaker Martin Romualdez, ay mukhang nakakalusot. So hindi sapat po yung nakikita natin, therefore tuloy-tuloy po yung kilos protesta.
The MMDA is telling motorists and the commuting public to manage their expectations since Wednesday, February 25 is not a non-working holiday.
Definitely po, sa dami ng dadalo at sa daming mga separate na mga pagkilos at marami yung grupo ang maglulunsad ng kanilang kilos protesta, talagang mabigat at inaasahan natin na maapektuhan ang daloy ng trapiko sa February 25 since it's a working holiday.
Authorities are asking the 5 groups who applied for rally permits to merge their activities into one. But Bagong Alyansang Makabayan and Kilusang Bayan kontra Kurakot want to hold a separate program at EDSA Shrine, a no-rally zone.
Meanwhile, here are the other stories making headlines on this Friday, starting with the moderately explosive eruption of Mount Canlaon. FIVOC's director, Teresito Bacolcol, said Canlaon's 2-minute explosion yesterday caused a 40-minute ash emission, which affected 41 barangays in Negros Occidental. Canlaon remains under alert level 2, and FIVOC sees no reason to raise its status. Bacolcol says the eruption might have occurred due to the blockage of volcanic gas pathways and resulting pressurization.
Meantime, at least 7 people were killed in separate landslides in the Davao region due to heavy rains triggered by the shear line. The victims include a family of 4 in Mati City, Davao Oriental, and 3 individuals in Moncayo, Davao de Oro. Heavy rainfall warning has been raised in surrounding provinces such as Surigao del Norte, Agusan del Norte, Agusan del Sur, and Dinagat Islands.
In other news, former Senator Bong Revilla has filed a bail petition before the Sandigan Bayan. This was confirmed by attorney Dennis Pulma, clerk of court of the Anti-Graft Court's 3rd Division. Revilla's petition is for his malversation case over an alleged ghost flood control project in Pandi, Bulacan.
And on another flood scam suspect, contractor Sara Diskaya dismissed the election complaint filed by her rival Pasig City Mayor Vico Soto. Her spokesperson, Attorney Cornelio Samaniego III, claimed that Soto only filed a charge to conceal his own disqualification case. And in response to a separate complaint against Diskaya, this time for perjury, Samaniego maintains that his client is a Filipino citizen. And finally, for our big picture tonight, it's Chinese robots doing martial arts. China showcased its ambitions to be a dominant force in humanoid robots. And this was revealed during the annual Spring Festival Gala, the country's most watched TV show that rang in the new year. Sketches include robots doing martial arts demonstrations and fight sequences such as drunken boxing. These performances show how robots have innovated in China, from coordination to fault recovery.
以前沿智能科技将刚劲有力的功夫招式与灵活精准的机器人表演相结合，成为本届春晚极具视觉冲击力的创新节目之。
Wow!
If you see the comparison videos from 2025 to 2026, parang medyo choppy pa yung movements nila. And then now it's
smooth, no?
Yeah, and of course, if you go on social media, they'll tell you that's the future of warfare.
So should we be afraid?
Pero
I'm scared.
mas viral kung magsasayaw sila.
Ang galing, may ano pa parang yung
Dapat
nagpa-parkour. You can look it up. Nakakatuwa yung robot dance performance.
Anong sinasabi ng commentator? Can you interpret for us?
No. It's too
too
serious and technical.
Okay.
Next, we're going to see robot pets. And what do you? Are you in favor of robotic dogs?
Depends. Will they have fuzzy fur and soft hair?
I'm sure they can do that, right? The
Why
future
not
is
the
scary.
real thing?
Yeah.
Wait, didn't we start from like robot pets and then they became humans?
Yeah.
Diba? Yung naunang, those little robot eyeballs.
All right, but on that note, that's it for the big story this week. Thank you so much for watching.
We are back here on Monday at 8 p.m. We'll see you then.
Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time. Good night and have a restful and energetic